episode, I will be touching on more of the basics. I'll be talking about the planetary association and the aspects, because I feel that we need to know how all these planets actually affect each other and other constellations, and when placed in a chart, it actually gives us some meaning and some interpretation that we can actually see more from all this kind of interpretation, what all these planets actually mean, and then how it actually affects each other. So we are talking about associations, we are talking about conjunctions here, we are talking about aspects. So usually one basic aspect is the first house, the planet will always aspect the number 7, the 7th house to its house. Okay, so for another example is this is your first house, it will always aspect the 7th house. Okay, get it? So this is one of the simple aspect we'll cover more, talk into this subject or this topic today in this episode, because in certain constellations, planets actually influence each other and the other constellations that we actually have here. So these special influences is what we actually just mentioned, that is called aspects. Okay, so these aspects are actually, we are actually following the Parashari system, because that's what I have been basing my practice in. So in other systems, it is the constellation that aspects each other and not the planet that aspects each other, and that is actually evident in another system called Jaimini system. So this is where the constellations, okay, all these constellations actually aspects each other. Okay, that means this one will actually aspect this one. Okay, so this is in the Jaimini system. So in another system called the Tajika system, planets aspect within certain orbs of influence. That means certain degree that this planet is in is aspecting another one in that same orbs of influence. That means we are looking at planets that is very close to each other, not this one, but in this current chart there is no such a planet, but they are talking about planets that's very close to each other. Okay, so we are following the influences in Parashari Jyotish, and this is by we are looking at the planets that's expecting each other. Okay, so this is just to be clear. So association, we are when we talk about planets association, this is when they influence one another. That means two or more planets that is influencing one another when they occupy the same constellation. So in this case, the moon, the Venus, and the Uranus is in this same constellation, this same house, which is the Aries constellation that is ruled by Mars. And so in this constellation, these three planets are having planetary association. That's what we are talking about here. So planets also influence the constellation and the houses by association. So each planet is associated with, and consequently they influence each other if they are placed in the same house, the same constellation. So in this chart, actually moon and Venus and Uranus is actually influencing each other in this 10th house. And this constellation, like I mentioned earlier, this is the constellation of the Lord is Mars. This is Aries constellation, so which all three of them occupy. Okay, so the next association, the next type of linkage is, we call it the full aspects. So full aspects, that aspects is basically you sitting in a place and you're looking, this planet is sitting in this place. In this room, you're looking at another planet in some other rooms. And there is always this different breakdown of aspects. So this, now I'm going to cover the full aspects. Okay, what it means by full aspect is that it's aspecting 100%. So it's aspecting in the chart, how we look at aspects is always the first is always aspecting the 7th. Okay, so this is one aspect, 1 and 7. Okay, so it's actually 1 and 7. So if we look at what this planet is expecting, this is for an example as a practice as well. Ketu is in your 5th house. So if we want to look at what Ketu is actually expecting, we count 7 inclusively from Ketu. So we can count 7. Okay, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3 here, and we have 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we can say that Ketu is also influencing this through full aspects. So full aspects, we are always talking about 1 to 7. Okay, so just take note of that. This is what we mean by full aspects. It's always the 7. So we actually can try another example just to be clear. So here we are looking at the moon. Okay, if we are just looking at this moon here, we can see what this moon is actually expecting as well. So as remember the 1 7, so we start to count inclusively. We include the constellation the moon is in. 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7. So moon is expecting 7. So as we can see, Venus and Uranus is also in this 10th house, the same constellation. So its full aspect is also the same as the moon. So we can safely say that Venus and Uranus is also fully aspecting this 4th house here. That means all those planets in this 10th house is aspecting the 4th house. Okay, so that's what it means. And it's always the 7th. So it's always 1 and 7. So Saturn, we can always know that 7 fully aspects the 1st house. So Saturn always aspects the 1st house in this Rashi chart. So all the planets will actually change according to all the different charts that we actually have. Okay, so this is not fixed. So we have to see the planets, the position in each different charts that we actually come across, and then we see. We just take note and we just accept at this point that this is what we call by expecting, and this is what we call by full aspects. Okay, full aspects is always 1 and 7 because there are other planets like Saturn, like Jupiter. They aspects more than 1 and 7. That means other than the full aspects, they also aspects other houses, which we will learn later. It's not a full aspect, so we call it special aspect. So this is in addition to the full 7th aspects. Okay, so the 3 planets that we know of have this special aspects, and these 3 planets are actually let me just highlight it to you here. So we have Saturn, we have Mars, and we have, where is Jupiter and Jupiter? Okay, so these 3 will actually have more aspects than just 1 and 7. So if you look at Mars, right? Okay, Mars will aspect the 4th, the 8th on top of 1st and 7th. Okay, so if we like do it in proper order, we won't go wrong. So the 1st, the 7th, plus the 4th and the 8th, and this is for this is not the 4D number. This one is the aspect of Mars from its position. So next we just look at where Mars is. Mars is here. Okay, Mars is here, so we start to count again. 1 2 3 4. So in the 4th house from Mars, Mars actually affect this bhava, this constellation, this house. Mars is looking at this house. So if we carry on counting from Mars, right? This is 6, this is 7. Okay, this is another house that is aspected from Mars. So Mars is also looking at this house. So Mars is very busybody. Mars is wants to influence all these houses in this Rashi chart. So this is the 5th house, and so this is also the 6th house. This is number 8. And if we continue numbering, 10, 11, and then 12, and then we carry on the cycle 1, 2, 3. So Mars will affect the 8th house as well. This is the 8th house. These are special aspects. So once this is where it sits, so of course it's influencing this one. So it will always influence the 4th from its place, the 7th from its place, and the 8th from its place. So Mars, we can say safely that Mars is aspecting, this is the person's 2nd house. If you remember, this is 2nd house, this is the 5th house, and this is the 6th house. Okay, so 11, 2nd, 6th, and 6th, 5th. Okay, so Mars is influencing these 4 houses. So 4 and 8 is the special aspects with Mars. So let's look at another example. We will look at the next one is, okay, let's look at Jupiter and see where Jupiter aspects. Okay, Jupiter special aspects. Okay, we have the basic 1 and 7, right? That is the full aspect. So the special aspects is, for Jupiter is the 5th and the 9th. Okay, 5th and 9th from Jupiter's position. So where is Jupiter? Jupiter is currently in the 8th house here. So this house, of course, Jupiter is influencing because Jupiter is sitting here happily. And where is he, Jupiter looking at, aspecting? Okay, so 1, let's do the counting again, but this time we just go faster. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so now we have drawn out all this already. So we look for 1 and 7. Okay, these are the obvious one, 1 and 7. And then these are the full aspects. So it's looking at the 2nd house here. And now we have the 5th. So the 5th is this one. And this is the 12th house. And then 9th, where's 9th? 9th is over here, and this is your 4th house, the house of your mother and your home. So this Jupiter is actually looking at all these houses, and then we know further that if Jupiter is a natural benefic, it's going to bring quite good results to these houses. Okay, so if we are looking at this during Jupiter period where this is actually highlighted, then probably your relationship with your mother is going to be closer, it's going to be more mature and more treated with wisdom, with care, and there's possibly some guidance from your mother, some advice, some good advice and wisdom from your mother. So this is one of the influence of Jupiter on the 4th house. Some more Jupiter is influencing this one, is influencing this one. This is your home, this is your home, this is your sustenance, this is your shelter, this is your food, and this is these are all quite good houses. So Jupiter is actually aspecting all of this. So this 5 and 9 is actually the special aspects of Jupiter. And lastly, we have this one. I don't think I will spend some time to go through it. I think you can count, you actually get the idea how to count. So in the last one, we have Saturn. So Saturn, we have our full aspects is 1 and 7, and then for Saturn, our special aspects is actually 3 and 10. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. 3 is here. 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7, and then 8, 9, 10. So 10. Okay, so when Saturn period is actually highlighted, it's actually influencing all of these places. Okay, so that is what aspecting is, it actually means. Okay, then after that we look at what this planet, if this planet is in this area, is it at home, is it feel comfortable, does it feel like it's in a friendly zone, a friendly territory, or is it in an enemy zone where it's cowering in fear? And that's how we see whether these are actually good impacts or good influences on these houses. Like for this one, this is like your mother's palace, your home palace, and your happiness, comfort palace. So Saturn going in, Saturn being a natural malefic planet, is going to be able to bring some discomfort into your home, and probably the happiness, you will have to fight quite hard for it, and probably that will actually interfere with your relationship with your mother. So that is one way that we can actually decipher from this, and we actually have to see a lot more layers to confirm this. So just take note that one tip for reading a Vedic chart is that if there is just one layer, like for this one aspect and one layer of reading, this can be just a coincidence. If there is certain aspects of a malefic planet that is expecting this one as well, for example, another malefic, let's say Mars is here, and this actually aspects this place, and it actually brings a negative results to this house, then it's the second layer of reading, of confirmation for the first layer on this house, that there is going to be some kind of breakdown in communication with the mother, and that is the second layer. So second layer could means a probable pattern, only probable, so it may be a pattern. So what you need to do as a Jyotish responsible reader or interpreter is that you need to look for the third confirmation, because if we have a third confirmation of another, you see Rahu down here and Mars, Rahu, another malefic, Rahu is here, is going to influence this again. So this forms a third confirmation of breakdown in communication, and that likely because this is a palace owned by or represent your mother, there is you actually see 3 times the pattern, and this is no longer a coincidence. So this is something that we can highlight. And to be a responsible Jyotisha is before we let our client know about all this, because if we don't get this kind of confirmation, it's better that we don't say, because the relationship may be very beautiful during this period. We do not know. We have to see for other details, and if just by the first look of just Saturn expecting this one, and we can come to this conclusion that there's going to be some quarrels or some friction when there is none, and you indirectly contribute to this quarrel, and that will be very detrimental for your client, your customer. Okay, so just take note of this. So 3 and 10 is the special aspects for this Saturn. Okay, then the next kind of the next aspect is called actually mutual and one-sided aspects. So what this actually means is that when two planets actually, okay, let me remove all of this, and then we just, before we go on. Okay, so when two planets actually aspect each other, this is called a mutual aspects. Let me find something. Okay, in this chart we don't have an example, but because Rahu and Ketu is always we can just pick Mars, and okay, Mars is aspecting this Ketu, and Ketu is aspecting Mars. So this is called mutual aspects. This can happen by association, full aspect, or special aspect. That means like by special aspects means like if you count from Saturn using that just now the other special aspects, and it actually aspects one of the planets, any planets here, that is also, we can identify that as a mutual aspects. So when that in the case of this association, the two planets actually occupy the same constellation, also can. And in the case of a full aspect, they occupy the 7 constellation from each other, also can. And this is where they actually look at each other, so they will influence each other, and only one mutual special aspect can occur, like between Saturn and Mars. When, for example, between Saturn and Mars, when Mars actually occupies the 10th constellation from Saturn, when a planet actually aspects another without the other one, that means if Mars actually aspect this one, but this planet actually doesn't aspect it back, this is one-sided. So this is what we call it as one-sided aspect. So this kind of situation also will contribute to the reading in terms of the amount of influence that they have. Of course, full aspects, they will have full 100% aspects, 100% influence on the full aspects. And then later I'll come to the figures. So partial aspects, the planets, besides the full and special aspects, the planet Sun through Saturn also have partial aspects. So all planets except Mars, okay, all planets except Mars will have a 75% aspect on the 4th and 8th constellation. So you counted inclusively from the constellation in which they sit. That means the way just now how I actually draw it out, it has to be inclusive. And all planets except Jupiter will have a 50% aspect on the 5th and 9th constellation. So just now the partial aspects that I was talking about, like Jupiter, we include 1, 7, and then 5 and 9. Other planets will have a 50%, whereas Jupiter will have 100% aspect on it. Okay, so and if you remember, Saturn is 1, 7, and 3 and 10. So the 3 and 10 for other planets, they will actually have 25% aspects on the influence on the strength, whereas Saturn will have 100%. Okay, that means let's say for Venus, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 3 and 10, they will have about 25% aspect. So it's very minimal, but usually we, in practice, most Jyotishis do usually ignore this 25%, this 50% thing, because we want to see prominent, like just now I was talking about 3 layers of confirmation. We want to see this kind of confirmation before we let out any deciphered messages or deciphered knowledge about people's destiny from the universe before we give confirmation. So at all this 25% or 50% is as good as 0%. So in terms of reading, we usually do either white or black. We don't usually touch on the gray areas. If we are not sure, we don't let out information that is that we are not sure about. So that is a part of our integrity and actually the ethics part of reading for people. So this is the aspects. So next we talk about the planetary strengths and how do we see like let's say this Saturn is strong, even though it's aspecting this 7. Is it strong enough to actually influence this? That means the effect that Saturn brings about, like discipline, discipline or slowness, delays. Is it strong delay, or is it just a normal delay that is just temporary? So in terms of strength, we look at a few things. To determine the strength of a planet, we actually look at firstly we look at the exaltation, the debilitation, and then we look at the constellation rulership. That means we will look at all these constellations and who rules what. So for example, like this is number 1, so the Lord is Mars, and if we have Mars sitting in here, this Mars is in his own sign, so it means he is very comfortable over here. He is able to be in his let's say in his own room. He can paint his house the color, the room the color he wants. He feels very comfortable in it, so he's able to shine and show his qualities or his characteristics very well. So this is a strong placement for Mars. So if this Mars over here is in this Aries constellation, then he is able to impact quite strongly his qualities to the other houses. Okay, and then we talk about the trinal strength. So this is the Mula Trikona strengths, which I will talk about later. And then we look at the planetary relationships as well. This planetary relationships is like, okay, the like the enemy of Saturn is Mars, the enemy of Saturn is the Sun, and we are talking about friendships, we are talking about neutral relationships. So there is a few relationships that we need to be aware of. So let's say okay, oh, this is an example of Saturn. So if you look at this Saturn here is in Capricorn, so Saturn actually feels at home here because this Capricorn actually the rulership is Saturn, so this is where he is sitting on his throne and he feels very comfortable in this period. So if in this house, sorry, so if let's say the Sun is sitting in here in this house, in this constellation ruled by in Saturn, and they are both enemies, so they actually don't get along well. So Sun is a bit not focused on what he needs to do in this place. The Sun will feel a bit weaker because he is so focused on whether this house of Saturn is he has to keep looking over his shoulder, and he's not able to perform his role or shine his identity because his efforts is focused on other things. So in this case, the Sun will be weaker than it is that it should be. But if the Sun is, let's say, is here, so this is the 5th house. The 5th house is the house of Leo, and the Sun rules the Leo. Okay, the Sun rules Leo. So the Sun here compared with the Sun here, this Sun is stronger. So this is one of the methods that we can see from this planetary relationship. So there is also the planetary state and the directional strength. The directional strength, we call it the Digbala. So DIG, this is how you spell it. Okay, Digbala. This is looking at where the planet is when you are born. Is it in the sky, in the daytime, in the nighttime? Is it going to set? Is it rising up? So this one I can probably illustrate to you from this way. So if you look at this, if we are drawing or dissecting this Rashi chart to see the Digbala, so we always identify this as the eastern horizon because this is where the start of the day, where all the planets are rising over the day. So if we dissect this like this, right, we identify this one as this half on the right, this half here as the daytime, and then this half as the nighttime, and we look at the planetary motion from the east to the west. So at this point, it's actually very easy, very common sense to actually say that if the Sun is at this point here, if the Sun is in this constellation, the Sun is here, the Sun will feel very happy. Do you know why? Because, okay, the Sun is rising from the east. So when the morning comes and the Sun actually rises up, the strength of the Sun is not so bright. It's still at an angle to the globe on where you actually look out. It's still shining from an angle. So this Sun will actually be quite dim until it rises up to where the noon is. This is 12 noon. This is the midday. And at midday, this is where the sun is shining the brightest. So if the Sun is here, we say that the Sun has Digbala because the Sun feels very comfortable in the 10th house. So the Sun's Digbala is in the 10th. So this is another way that we can actually tell whether this Sun is actually strong. So if we In the next episode, I will be talking more in depth about the strength of the planet, because before we go down to the characteristics of the planets, we have to understand how to tell whether the planet is strong or weak in certain circumstances, certain scenarios. Because if a strong benefic planet, which is a good planet, is sitting in a good house, and we actually let our client or our friends know that, hey, you are going through a very good period, and they actually tell you no, it's still normal, I mean it's better by a bit, but it's not like a lot, then we will be scratching our head, like wondering why this is so. And later part, after applying the strength, we actually see that this good planet, let's say Jupiter in the 11th house, the Jupiter is actually very weak because probably it's in an enemy territory, it's not in its own home, it's not exalted, or it's not in the Dikbala position that it actually should be. So there's a lot of factors influencing the planet strength, and from there we can actually tell whether it's very prominent for the people we are reading for, or is it insignificant. So this is the importance of planetary strength. So in the next episode, we will carry on with part 2 of this strength measurement, because there's a lot of details, a lot of knowledge in here, and this is one thing that we don't want to miss out on. So in the next episode, I will be covering that. So in the meantime, take care, and I'll see you soon.